two heads are better than one. You're going to come up with more ideas. You've heard of this before? Yes? Okay. So it's a little bit true. It's not completely true. The research actually shows that when you put folks together in a brainstorming situation, like I just said, I want you to sit at your tables and I want you to brainstorm all the ways we can have productive group work. Well, what happens is a couple of problems do emerge. We have production blocking is one, and production blocking is basically, let's say, Johanna here comes up with this brilliant idea, and I'm sitting next to Johanna, and I'm thinking, well, my idea may not be as brilliant as Johanna's. I don't think I'm going to say it anymore. I'm going to just squash that, right? I may not give the group my idea because I've judged it to not be as valuable as somebody else's. So that's one of the problems. The other one is groupthink, and this happens a lot. So somebody will say something in a group, we'll have Phyllis over here who says something, and everyone says, Phyllis, that's a fabulous idea. And everybody jumps on that bandwagon, and you haven't even explored other options. You've just jumped on it. And the truth is, we don't like conflict, right? We don't want to say, Phyllis, that idea sucks. We don't want to say that. We don't want to even say it may not even be, that great. You don't want to do that. People aren't comfortable challenging, putting someone else down. So what happens is we just jump on that. And now, even if we don't really think it was the best idea ever, we're going to be like, well, 4 other people at the table said that, so I guess I should say it too, right? Jump on that bandwagon. So now you really don't have more ideas. You just have a lot of cheerleaders for one idea, right? And you might go to that group and it might seem like it's very consistent, but it's not. And then, of course, in a brainstorming session, you can have the good old social loafer, right? The person who sits there with their feet up, not doing anything, because Melissa here gave all the ideas. I don't have to do a darn thing. Keep going, And then Crystal jumps in with some, and Terry, and by the end, you don't have to do anything, Joanna, because everybody else did all that work, right? So the idea here is that brainstorming is not an evil idea, but I think we overestimate how powerful it really can be. So instead, what we want to do is we want to have folks have the opportunity to work independently first. So what this particular study did is it looked at brainstorming, where they had groups work together, and they had to come up with a list, and if I recall correctly, it might have been ways to use a paperclip or something. I have read so many different studies, but I think that's the one that this one is about. And then the next one was a nominal group. So what they did is they had them work independently first. So come up with as many ways as you can, and then talk about it as a group. And what they found was that this nominal group had a better quality as well as quantity. So there were more ideas and more high-level ideas if you give people think time. So what you don't want to do is just say, get into a group and start talking without any prep, without any cognitive prep, without any clear instructions. That can lead to a disaster. So there's this concept called brainwriting, which kind of pulls on the same idea of that nominal group. And what brainwriting is when you have people sharing ideas. So we're actually going to do this, and I think the easiest way to show you what brainwriting is for you to do it. So you're all going to need an index card. If you want to recycle the one you used, you can write on the other side. If you need another one, I do have some more. But everyone's going to get an index card again. Don't start working, I just want to go over the directions with you. So what brainwriting is the first step. You're going to write down one solution that addresses a problem to group work. Now, you already have a bunch of them floating around because you just engaged in that exercise before. So any idea that you have that makes group work more productive, you're going to write it down on the card. Then what's going to happen is you're going to take your card, you're going to pass it to the right. So Margaret's going to give hers to Natalia. Now Natalia's going to get a card that has an item on it, and let's just say Margaret wrote down, give an individual assignment first or something. So, okay, so that might be on there. So now Natalia is not allowed to write that down because she already did. And she can't write down what she wrote down and gave over here. I'm sorry, your name again? Shannon. So she can't write down her own idea. So once you write down an idea, you can't just keep writing it on every card. That's a no-no. You have to come up with new ideas. And you just keep passing the cards around your table until I say stop, okay? So what happens is at the end, you should be getting a nice, pretty extensive list of ideas. It'll be easier in the beginning, and then it's going to get harder because you're going to have to come up with more ideas because because you're going to run out of them. So you're going to have to get a little more creative with your thinking. Questions about the process or the task? All right. Yes?
Oh, so these solutions are not necessarily related to the problem on the
You can any group work problem. It's a more global. Yeah, any problem at all relates to group work. So, all right, so go ahead, write down, and then as soon as you're done writing, you just pass it to your right. And you'll just keep passing and passing until I tell you to stop. All right, folks, whatever you have in front of you will be your last one, so finish writing your thoughts. You can hold on to your last one if you want to share it. We will in a moment, don't worry. All right, let's do another quick timeout for process. So you can see here that this is a really small but easy way to build in some individual accountability where everyone has to participate, right? Everyone is involved and everyone is sharing their thoughts. Now, what should happen, and you would in your class, you could maybe go on a little bit longer, and it depends on the nature of the prompt, obviously, what you're asking them to do. But as it went along, did it get a little harder? Yes, it does, and it does get much more tricky. But what would happen is if we didn't do it this way, and I just asked you to come up with ideas, you probably wouldn't come up with as many. How many of you had the experience when you read somebody else's idea, it triggered a different thought for you? So several of you had that. And that should happen, because what happened, I didn't think of that angle, and not that you're writing down the same exact idea, but now you can put a little bit of a new twist or a new idea together. So now the next step of brainwriting is that in your groups, you will then discuss some solutions. So I'm only going to give you about 3 minutes to talk about the brainwriting process. You can share a little bit about what you came up with on your cards, but what you would do in your class is just spend a little bit longer. So what we're doing is kind of mini versions of the group work that you would do because we don't have time to do the full-fledged version. So I'll give you 3 minutes to talk amongst your group about either the content on the cards and or the process of brainwriting. All right, so we're going to go ahead and stop these conversations. I know this is really terrible. I hate cutting off conversation, but one important thing for you to know about group work is you want to make sure you don't give them too much time that they're, off task. But this was a little too short. In class you give them a little more time, but because we're doing the mini sessions today. So you always want to think about how much time do I give? Well, if you give too much time, then what happens is they get off task. If you give them not enough time, then they're not going to get the task accomplished. Was there a question, Anna?
Yeah, I was thinking about is if you would categorize this specific aspect or this specific category of brainwriting for solution-based questions, or if you would open it up so you're talking about sort of scientific aspects, and if it's it's not exactly a factual, doesn't feel like it's just a write down the facts, but it's a solution. So,
well, it may not be just facts because you need to have more than one idea, but
right.
It could be examples of concepts. So maybe it's a content. So maybe it's a theoretical fact that you need to know in order to come up with different examples of it. So you want to try to think about how it might work in your discipline. It also could be used for the recap, most important point you thought of class. So that would be another way that would be transferable to anyone's area. So what did you learn best in this, class? Or what concept's most confusing? And now you have a conversation about the most confusing or the muddiest one. I think Stephen Brookfield, it was a long time ago that he was on campus, but he talked about that issue. So there's ways to transfer this idea really into any discipline, but it doesn't have to only be solutions. But it can't just be facts because you'll run out of things to say. So it has to be something that there's a multiple list. It could be name all the different bones in the body or something. It could be something like that if you want to go with, I know the bio folks are struggling with some of those. So I guess you could do it that way, but it's really more designed for the more creative and applying kinds of exercises. So that is, so you just experienced one type of group work that again gets everyone involved and should have everyone's voice. So even if we had Debbie put something on her card and she didn't really want to talk about it, well, someone else might have seen her card and said, well, I really want to hear more about this. Who wrote this and can you say something more about it? I don't fully understand. So it's an opportunity for you to invite other people to communicate and share their ideas more fully.